that Mitchell was continuing to progress in his talents and scaling things beyond what the medical laws in Colorado were going to allow at that time. And we were like, yeah, let's make a business out of this. And so, my dad brought his expertise and brought the land, and I'm good at paperwork and reading between the lines of these complex legal documents. And as you know, from being in medical, it was a lot harder. It wasn't like you just check some boxes and pay, enter your debit card info and your license shows up. You had to prove that you had what it took to do it. And we weren't able to get a license, but we had a great application and a great business plan. And luckily, shout out to Urban Wellness. They gave us a shot. They saw talent. They were willing to, stake their reputation on us, and they brought us in as a contract grower. And that was a really good thing it was, I think, 6 or 7 years. Yeah.
Well, and that's what's really cool about you guys. And I don't know if everybody knows, but yeah, Lava Leaf is a new business, a new venture with adult use, but you guys are not new growers. You guys have been growing contract, Lava Leaf as a company has been growing, well before you were ever licensed under other licenses. Just Urban, or was there multiple?
Yeah. Okay, so everything was Urban Wellness Central. Cool.
So, and for those of you that don't know, back in our medical days, most of the original licenses did contract grows. And that's where basically, they'd have somebody else grow for them, offsite, not at Urban Wellness. And yeah, you guys were one of those. And, it's really cool. And I don't know if people know that about you guys, but I met you and I started seeing your face at the state meetings. You guys have always been hugely active at a state level with cannabis legalization, hemp legalization. And that is something, because there's not many people at those meetings. So the faces you do see at those meetings, especially the ones speaking, are very recognizable and usually the same people. And yeah, that was one thing before I ever, met up with you at Urban Wellness. Finally, I had already met you and seen you and recognized your face from all the state hearings. So that's cool. Not only, do you talk the talk, but you walk the walk as well. So.
Man, we feel like if you don't, then somebody else is going to be in control of your destiny, and not being a license holder, you were already kind of subservient to the powers that be. And so, I saw it as, the quicker we can use this foot we have in the door to open the door, then the sooner we'll be in control of our own destiny. And so, that was always the goal, was to obtain our own licenses. We just didn't think it was going to take as long to open that door as it did. But, it's no regrets. We learned a lot, learned a lot about how state politics work and, what realistic timelines are when you're relying on the legislature. And it gave me an appreciation of government, because, you realize why the wheels of government turn so slow is you got to get a lot of people on the same page. And like you saw when the bill first passed, the critics all come out and they all have something to say. And I'm always like, well, where were you at 2:30 in the morning when this bill was getting passed? Because it's all compromise. It's not just our way or their way. It's a middle ground. And that's, it's good to be informed, because otherwise you think it should be this way. And it's like, well, you have to make it that way or it won't be.
One thing that always stuck out to me when I'd see you is you're a young guy. You're young, clean cut, Hispanic guy who was really well spoken. And I always remember being like, man, who the fuck is this guy? Like, but in a good way, because, you're used to the kind of sloppy hippie standing up there, bless their soul, bless their heart. Usually complaining about access to medicine, but it was, this, kind of 60s, disheveled look, person up there kind of mumbling. And then to have, young people were not there at all. And there was very few real cannabis people there, other than obviously the older hippies that, were fighting for their medical cause. But to see an entrepreneur, young guy in there, well-spoken, I think was huge for, the industry and the look that we were trying to get. I was like, who is this guy? Like, this is good. This is what we need. And then I looked you up and I was like, fuck, they don't even have a license. Like, literally, who is this guy? And with
who invited this motherfucker?
You know, and I'm like, this dude's like serious. Like he said, Lava Leaf, like he has a fucking company name. Like, he's somebody. And I'd ask people like, we never heard of him. He's not licensed, dude. Here's the, you know, state registry. He's not licensed. And I'm like, no, man, he said he was growing, you know, he said he's active, you know, and, you know, did a little research.
Well, and I would try not to name drop at those meetings. I would always wear our branded stuff because, you know, didn't have the authority to operate in that capacity for Urban Wellness.
When you weren't speaking for them.
Yeah, exactly.
You worked for them as a contract. You weren't speaking for them.
Yeah, they had a different agenda. And, you know, I understand why you'd want to, you know, you want to fly stealth whenever you're already running a great business. The industry is perfect from your perspective. But, you know, we're hungry. We were always on the outside. And it's like, all right, man, we need to get in and have our own licensure. And I didn't see any other way other than to participate, because that's what happened when the 2015 licenses were out. By the time we found out about the RFP, you know, I had 2 months to prepare an application, and we had 500 good
You didn't
pages.
Get in 15.
We didn't.
Right?
Yeah, we didn't. You know, we saw groups that, you know, I mean, there were sheriffs licensed before us, and we were shovel ready, but we didn't understand that the goal of the application was shock and awe, not concise. You know, we were trying to make it to where it was easy to navigate, document, to where you understood that we had a good plan. But, you know, we lost points for not having a dispo business plan, whereas it's said in our plan, we're wholesale growers. We're not here to...
Our plan is not to have a fucking dispo.
Yeah, I put NA on that section and put we're wholesale growers. We're going to complement the licensed producers in this capacity as wholesalers. And
they didn't understand that.
That didn't, you know, and so we lost points to people that just made stuff up.
Well, and a lot of guys don't realize that 2015 like license cut, is that when they put the moratorium?
That was when they did 12.
They did 12. Yeah. So that cut like hurt a lot of feelings. There was a lot of people with millions of dollars invested into their infrastructure, because that was the old DOH. Now they'll fucking give you a fucking license if you got fucking stick of bubble gum and a fucking one shoe on. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you fucking sign here, motherfucker, send your fee. But back with the DOH, God, they wanted your firstborn. Like, they wanted fucking documentation out the ass. They wanted I remember the first licenses, they checked for funds. They actually wanted you to show your bank funds and show that you were liquid enough to withstand so much. They had a, you know, arbitrary fucking number. But you really had, the DOH was not fucking playing.
No.
They
showed up. Yeah, they were always at the place,
bro. And you know, it was intense. And you know, the new regime is much different. The new licensing structure is much different. And you know, I don't think a lot of people truly appreciate the difficulties that, you know, a lot of companies went through to be DOH certified.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, and I think somewhere in the middle would have been perfect. You know, I'm not, you know, it's not all roses, but we're focused on the positive, and we're moving in a positive direction. But it's opened a little too wide. You know, the floodgates just were full blown, no restrictions, and it's really let a lot of riffraff in. You know, we're surprised every day, even though I don't know why, because it just keeps getting stranger. But it started off pretty strange. You know, you think you'd get used to it after a year and a half in, but it still shocks me sometimes.
And look, I have no fucking problem signing an affidavit saying my shit's legit, but hey, anybody that's been here knows my shit's legit.
Yeah.
I'm compliant. I'm fucking barcoded. We don't have anything in the building we're not supposed to. We've never taken fucking shit that was not fucking, you know, biotracked. We run our company under compliance to a T.
Your people are working in a safe environment.
So to have someone like me sign an affidavit and say, yes, I'm following all the rules, cool. To have some of these new Tom, Dick, and Harrys sign one is just like, are you literally asking the fucking criminals if they're lying or not? Do not lie and do not fucking steal anything, okay? And they're like, yeah, of course, you have to let me in this motherfucker. And, you know, there's a certain level of that is you can't have the just sign here and you're good unless there's some accountability, unless there is inspections, unless there is, you know, hey, we're here to make sure that those signatures line up with all your fucking paperwork.
Yeah, and if it was to get medicine to the patients, then that might have been okay for 30 or 60 days because you're going to go catch up. But that's just where, you know, there is no follow-up. There is almost no check. And I know they are out there visiting, and I know the people there are some great people. It's just I don't think there's enough of them because there's so many goddamn licenses. I can't imagine having to visit them all, you know? So that's what's crazy is the sheer work volume is pretty, it's got to be overwhelming. Like to be in their office, I can't imagine dealing with me and all the other people that have legitimate gripes, but you know, they call and they're frustrated with this or that not working. And, you know, you just see the wheels getting jammed and it's got to be tough.
And shout out to the CCD. You know, there's some cool guys working there. We got visited by 3 super cool guys. You know, when you follow the rules and you fucking take care of business, you don't got to worry about inspections. Exactly. You don't got to worry about shit like that. It's fun. It's fucking show your shit off and laugh about it in the room after. And that's what it was when they came by. But if those of you that don't know this or not, look it up on the website. They're busting people and in a good way.
Yeah.
You know, I never thought I'd think about it like that. You know, I never really wanted to think of anybody getting busted. And there's this, you know, obviously, you know, not a fan of cops, you know, never been, you know what I mean? Had my share of run-ins. But when it comes down to our industry and something that I take so serious, I am glad these motherfuckers are getting busted. And I am glad that there is some sort of accountability because they're standing next to us, competing with us, not playing by the fucking rules. You know, you got to grow your plants. You got to grow your pounds, your flower to sell, you know, in New Mexican soil, whatever your media is. But, you know, in New Mexican air, you got to feed it with New Mexican water. You got to pay New Mexican labor to fucking to tend it. And inherently that product is New Mexican. And that product has a higher value, a higher price tag than some black market fucking pound that, you know, pack that fell off the fucking truck out of Oklahoma or out of Cali that is, you know, bottom barrel fucking who knows, pesty ridden fucking slave labor fucking
somebody rejected it or it wouldn't be here.
and it's coming after you. And your New Mexican to the core fucking product that, you know, whatever you're trying to sell for, you know, $2,400 and, you know, a pound or whatever. I don't know your prices, but, you know, next to the guy that's coming in and said, I got this for $400, you know what I mean? Or whatever, $1,600, $1,500 pound, you know, but this guy's got it for fucking $400.
Yeah. We wish all those numbers were reality.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I don't know where the market's at now, you know, don't quote me on any numbers, but at the end of the day, the motherfucker's coming in and he's cutting your throat and he's shitting on New Mexico. And fucking look it up on the CCD website. You can go look at the companies. I don't have to say their names. I don't have to sit there and, you know, talk shit because it's on the fucking website. You can see their license. You know, there's some slimy ones that are doing business as, but do some Google searching. You'll figure out who the fuck they're doing business as and see who is not playing by the rules.
Well, what really scared me when, like, on the section of that website you're referring to was reading some of the particulars in the judgment. You know, it said they paid $15,000 for having some out-of-state disty, unlabeled, well, actually labeled, but from another place. And you see this, and the fine was $15,000 within 7 days. Well, it says what's going to happen if they get a second time. It's going to be $30,000.
Yeah, it's more money.
And then another time, it was $50,000, and then finally $100,000, and you lose your license. So that means you can commit 4 felonies before you lose your license.
5 more times. and so this is where I gotta say shame on. You know, I started out with a shout out, but shame on our system for having that structure. So, could you go break the law in that structure?
I would
hope not.
I don't never want to find out. You know, that's why it's so hard. We're towing the line watching these people that seem to have no regard.
I mean, let's say you're pulled over by a state trooper. Joe Schmo out here is pulled over by a state trooper, and you've got Oklahoma or wherever, Colorado, fucking wherever, Shanghai, fucking leaders. What would happen to you?
You'd be going to prison.
You'd be going to prison.
Straight up.
So do you think there'd be some sort of fucking scale where they were like, all right, you can do this basically we're trying to get about 100 grand out of you, 200 grand. So we'll let you do this 5 times and then you're really in trouble. And where was the recall?
Where was the recall?
So
exactly,
so they have proved that this product was from out of state. Where is the recall? This product is in patients and New Mexico consumers' lungs. It's on the shelves of dispensaries all over the state. Where's the recall?
They got to test it.
They tested it, yeah, and they found out it was fucky. You know what I mean? So where's the recall?
Yeah.
How do I know that this unregulated whatever from fucking state unknown does not have something that can hurt me or one of my family members in it? How do we know there's not fucking whatever in it?
That's what concerns me. It's just one of those, like, we go a long way to make a safe product.
Yeah.
We put a lot of love in this, the amount of growers we have to the amount of canopy. We say it's not just beyond organics, it's fair trade because we grow in community. We have a lot of really, really good people working on our farm, bringing their best, and it really slaps them all in the face because, prices tumbled this year in half.
Yep.
And we're like, okay, can we really survive another half?
And same on the oil side, same on the liter side. Prices have tumbled.
Yeah.
And I can't help but think it's because there's an unfair advantage of out-of-state product being brought in. And the fact that it's a fine and no recall and no, believe me, I understand. I get second chances. I've been given second chances in my life, but third, fourth, fifth, come the fuck on.
Yeah.
Like where
it would have never happened under DOH. They were strict, and I liked it because at first we griped. We've had to concentrate herb because it failed yeast and mold, and that hurts, but it's the right thing to do. And the bottom line is, at this point, I would welcome that level of regulation back because I see how healthy it kept
the DOH showed up with
strong.
The state fucking police. I'll tell you that right now, that there was, back in the day, there was multiple, stories of them rolling in with fucking troopers. You know what I mean? That's how they got down. If they had to do any type of law enforcement, the troopers were there to do law enforcement, and the DOH did the fucking regulation enforcement. You know what I mean? But yeah, they didn't fuck around. And so, yeah, we'll see. It's definitely getting interesting.
They're hiring.
They're doing something.
They're hiring. I see momentum.
Yeah.
When we do have interactions, the questions are getting better. I feel like they're getting it, and it's just going to be growing pains. They've just lasted a little bit longer, and when your boot's on the ground, it really hurts. And so that's where I think it's going to be better and better. The license got yanked, right? That's a start. And we're seeing these documents that otherwise you sound like a conspiracy theorist when you bring it up, because I'm like you, I'm not saying names, but let's get down to what data is going to prove that these practices can no longer be. Like, BioTrack tells the truth. And if you call me and say, hey, why this, why that, we have a straight answer. And that's one of my recommendations when I talk to them is, if you see something fishy, pick up the phone and ask. See how comfortable they are answering the questions. And, you don't have to leave the office as much as you think you do. The other big one I'm asking for that I think will really help is just don't renew licenses if they don't have a letter of good standing with TRD. Because there's still a gap.
Taxes,
It's like, let's get all our due as New Mexicans, let's get some of those Colorado roads and schools going on.
Isn't Colorado pretty when you drive through there?
Oh, man.
Don't you fucking love it? Isn't it nice? Yeah. And then you fucking drive through our cat litter fucking bullshit fucking, most of the cities and most of the places don't even landscape. They don't landscape their medians or, there's a huge need for infrastructure.
They did just finish
boosting.
Their second renovation of the Colorado side.
Yeah. Oh, dude,
since we've done any. It's
like ridiculous. So, well, introduce your guys yourself before we get too far into it. And what's your names and where are you from and what are you guys about?
I'm Mitchell Martinez. I live in Aztec. I'm from Farmington, New Mexico, from the south side. We both went to McCormick Elementary.
Nice.
I was born on 420 and growing weed is in my blood.
And your company?
It's Lava Leaf Organics, proudly.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm Tony Martinez, Lava Leaf Organics. Me, Mitchell, and my dad run this company together. It's a family business. All of our wives help us. We have a huge community of growers. If I had to say there was one thing that differentiates us, it's that all of our growers are our business partners. So we partner with mom and pop companies, families sometimes of 4. We have a family of 4 that holds down 3 rows, but there's, bunch of couples, a couple buddies, each row is manicured and maintained by a small group of growers. So
nice.
It's, we wanted to make something as close to like employee owned or fair trade as you can. But as you know, in a highly regulated environment, if they owned equity in the company, then we're having to provide too much documentation.
Yeah.
And so this was a way to really share. So we're open about wholesale prices, and we just have a profit sharing agreement, and
nice.
And it's going well. The community's growing strong. And
I didn't know you guys were doing like almost a co-op style. Like
it was a way for us to scale. I wanted to be able to scale without losing that quality touch.
Yeah.
And business owners, there's some great employees out there. I've had amazing people on my team, and we have amazing people on our team to this day. But I see the difference in how hard a business owner will work versus an employee, because you don't get a check if you don't do it. Like you have to do it. And these guys just put their heart and soul. These guys, and I should say ladies, the wives are the hardest workers. Everybody's wives work circles around them. So shout out ladies. But we have just a really strong community, and it makes it fun, and this year Mitchell's coaching the whole team, and I haven't even been to the grow many times, but it looks amazing.
Nice. What's your part of it right now?
We're dabbling in retail.
Nice.
I just wanted to learn retail, really, to speak.
That's right.
Retailer.
So this adult use was your first chance at doing retail yourself.
Yeah, we never really wanted to, but I wasn't close to that side of the company in my capacity before, and we knew that we had a lot to learn. Selling wholesale, I always saw how easy it was to get beat up if you didn't have a retail outlet, because people know when you're bluffing, and if your stuff's not good, it's not good.
Yeah.
And so you gotta bring your best, and having a retail operation for us wasn't to move product necessarily as to value it. We see people's reactions, see what moves, what are people getting excited about, how do they want it packaged. So we wanted to learn some of the ins and outs of retail, so that way I could better communicate.
That's smart.
And we've learned a lot, and so the dispo's doing good, not great, but
that's in Farmington?
It's in Farmington.
Lovely.
Yeah. Cool. But we're trying to learn to measure by different metrics. We always are trying to do things from a higher place, and we want to, build that community. So when I look at it as the meditations that we've been holding in our shop have doubled in membership in 1 month, then I'm like, okay, there is something.
So you guys do some other, obviously, you guys do some other stuff, other stuff other than just sell weed.
Yeah, man, we sell some crystals. One of our med tenders, Billy, makes super dope crystal necklaces. So odd day that I don't have one on, but he made
I'm
Mitchell's.
barely noticing it. Are those crystals in your logo?
Yeah, it's a crystal leaf logo.
Zach, Z Labs got me the other day, and he told me so he's very into crystals too.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, I've been staring at it the whole time. There's crystals in your, I had noticed them, but I'd never put anything. Now I'm looking at your logo, and I just got the same feeling because I've seen your logo a million times, and until you said something, now I see the crystals. Okay, so
it's a crystal kind of top 3 of the weed leaf.
What's that?
I meant to shout out to Z Labs. I'm glad you brought them up. I forgot to tell him earlier we have a crystal pyramid. Tony has bought these crystal pyramids.
Zach's the coolest fucking guy, dude.
Yeah, I got one buried underneath a plant that'll probably do 6 or 7 pounds.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Oh, so are you talking about the ones that are like charged and stacked with everything? Have you seen those? They build these like structures, and then they
there's like a copper coil in the middle.
Yeah, I
follow those guys.
Yeah, they specially stack different crystals within this, and they make a pyramid or whatever out of it. But yeah, it's basically an energy centering device.
Yeah, there's a lot out there, and for us, it's like if it makes it more fun, we know certain things about crystals. Like these microphones wouldn't be working if there wasn't a little crystal vibrating in there. Most of the technology that we work with today in one way or another brings crystals in, and I always say we don't grow, just plants. We grow crystals that happen to grow on plants. So, we're curing with a frequency generator running. We do all kinds of fun hippie shit.
Okay. Okay.
Play
I
crystal balls to them, you know.
Well, and I guess I'm just fucking head down working because no, I haven't noticed it, but now I'm seeing more of a trend and more of, more seeing that good energy. And what's funny is the guys that are talking to me about it are always cool, good energy guys. You know what I mean? And the dickheads, and the assholes of the industry, they don't know shit about fucking vibration or frequency or anything like that.
It matters to us, whenever like some people that
Well, it matters to the whole universe.
yeah.
So without us fucking wanting it or not.
It does, and I think if nothing else, it increases your awareness and attention. For me, it's like the crystal singing bowls put off some sound and they vibrate and they feel good, but also it just makes you be mindful for 2 seconds.
Dude, I'm a fucking rock hound, bro. I got so many specimens at my house and I got all kinds of shit. And yeah, dude, I got some great stones.
So you just find them when you're out?
Well, yeah, that, and I just, collect them, buy them when I can, when I see something super cool, something that I'm drawn to. But yeah, no, I had tons of crystals. I've been attracted to crystals since I was a very little kid. I was the kid that had fucking rocks in my pocket. You know what I mean? I was definitely like, you know what I mean? But like, I always thought that they were fucking badass because I'd find the good ones. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but yeah, anyways, that's cool.
You're bringing that to work with you, dude.
Yeah.
But, I said, bring them into work, bro. Get some jams up in here, bro. You're probably going to have the giant one that I always want when I go to Mama's Minerals.
Have you seen the fucking meme? I fucking love it. The dude's like a comedian or something. And they're like, tell me something about yourself. And it's a black guy. And he's like, I'm not retarded, but I like rocks.
I have seen that.
And he's like, I just like, carrying them around me. He's like, I got one right now. But no, man, that's cool.
I resonate with him for sure.
Yeah, that's cool to see. I feel like the cannabis industry is bad energy and it's been corrupted with bad energy. So it's cool to see a handful of people fighting that bad energy in a sense and bringing it back to the original, peaceful, loving, thing that it always was, always meant to be, and I think that it's going to take more and more, like I said earlier, actual cannabis people that have a passion and a heart for the culture and more just good centered, good energy people that believe in a world of abundance, that believe that, that's the whole thing about the plant. It's abundant. Yeah. You know what I mean? We're growing fucking money trees. You're growing money trees. Like, there, if done right, and done with the right energy, the plant will provide amazingly. And I think people tapping into that are just gonna do a little better than the ones that are fucking, running their whole operation on like hate and fucking evil, which there's a lot of that, dude. It's nasty out there. I hear more and more shitty stories like daily.
Yeah, it is, and that's what's nice about, it was easier being on the farm, to tune some of that out, but in the retail, you have more time to stew on it, so to speak. You're checking the CCD website and, now with the, the crop portal where everybody's at. So, it's one of those where, you got to wonder, but I think over time, like I've heard you say on this podcast before, and I believe always and say the cream rises to the top and, we know what we have and we're just going to stick to doing it because enough people have showed us that they like it. And we're only leveling up. We had to start from pretty much scratch and, we're moving forward quickly and that's where this year is going to be amazing,
Look, Ultra showed us back in the day that, they could grow and, make all kinds of money without really giving a fuck about appearance of their product or actual quality, of their products. I don't name any names, but he's a big boy. He could take it. So, you know what I mean? But they showed that you can commercially produce mids, boofy shit, and still, turn a profit and survive. So I do feel that there's always going to be those people in the industry and they're going to have their hold on, however many stores. But just like I've said before, just like the alcohol industry, you've got people that drink 99 fucking bananas, and you got people that, you know, Johnny Walker fucking Blue Label, whatever, you know, they're going in there and they're going to spend money to find their premium brand. You got people that drive Hyundais, you got people that would, you know, never not be in a Mercedes. You know what I mean? And motherfucker gets you to point A and point B the same way. But you know what I mean? You're always going to have that market of the bottom dollar people and the high end people. And I think the dispensaries and the spots that carry a good range of items, carry a good spread of quality stuff from, you know, different people across the state, and provide a cool atmosphere, a good atmosphere, are gonna be the ones that survive. You know, there's so retail, in my opinion right now, retail is the hardest game. Because it's just, I mean, we're fucking saturated in stores. Yeah. So it's really cool to hear you saying some different things, selling crystals, selling items, you know, non-cannabis things, talking about the meditations, doing meetups, using the space for, you know, extracurricular stuff. That's the kind of stuff that's going to save dispensaries. That's going to save brands, because yeah, you know, at the end of the day, yeah, there's always the spot that you're going to go to just because you pass by it. It's closest to your house. You know what I mean? Like I smoke cigarettes, so there's one gas station. You could probably look at my bank records. There's one gas station that I'm, you know, always using. It's the one fucking next, you know, closest to my house. So there's that mentality of where you shop. And then there's like your favorite spot. Yeah. So more and more companies, I think, need to focus on being people's favorite spot, because location's only going to give you literally how many cars, you know, the possibility of your traffic. Yeah. But the destinations are the ones that I think are really going to make it on the retail side. Is where's the spots that people are driving fucking far to go to? You know what I mean? Where are those spots that are bringing in? That's where, if I was a dispensary owner, I'd really want to see, like, you know, geographically where the business was coming in from, to see that reach. Yeah. How much reach do we, obviously there's tourists, and you can say, oh, I got a guy from Texas, cool, whatever. But people in New Mexico, where are the New Mexicans going out of their fucking way to go get stuff? You know, and if you look, those spots are usually going to be the hot spots, the, you know, places that are giving more, you know what I mean, to the end user.
We're learning every day, you know, so that's where we know the way energy can build, and sometimes it's a slow build, but it's on a solid foundation. You know, the more places I visit, even the ones I appreciate, I can appreciate how unique, you know, this space is, you know. And so, you know, we don't need to build a giant chain of dispensaries. We have a lot of great retail partners, and that really allows us to be on the farm. So we'll see.
Well, and that's why I feel
what the future holds.
Even in Farmington, I feel that like Lava Leaf as a brand is either already or going to grow to be a destination. Yeah. Where people are going to be like, oh, I'm going through Farmington, I want to stop at Lava Leaf.
And that's when we see it. It's always awesome to get that, you know, we get the travel crowd, you know, we have nothing but 5-star reviews. We're starting to get a lot of them. Things are going well from most metrics. You know, it's just a overly saturated market, and we were really late to the game. You know, we have only been open for, I think, about 8 months now.
So we talked a little bit about it. I don't know if we were recording or not yet, but you guys obviously, you know, come from the medical era. You grew for urban wellness. How long has Lava Leaf, you know, been a, you know, cannabis growing company?
Mitchell's been growing forever. You want to just talk a little bit about your history and when we got?
Well, no, when you started growing for the medical, how long?
When we went with, it was in 2016. So we planted. You know, when they got their license, they already had their warehouse running. We took clones for that outdoor season and rock and roll.
So that's huge. So the people that don't know that or not, you know, we briefly touched on it, I think, earlier. So Lava Leaf as a grow and as a producer has been, you know, growing, you know, in the legal state system since 2016. That's huge. I mean, so you guys probably have, you know, built a really cool infrastructure that a lot of these new companies and, you know, hadn't had yet.
Oh, well, definitely the head start on that living soil. Obviously, it was in our backyard. We've been building it for so long. There's the terps speak for themselves. I hope you like
terps
that.
Terps are great. What did we just smoke?
That's the forbidden cake.
Nice. So
we're excited about.
Not to cut you off or whatever. What is that? That's cake. What's the mix on that?
Forbidden fruit and cake and jam.
That's really good. That had good taste all the way through.
Yeah, it's a new winner. We committed to it for this year. It just had a hype. Every once in a while you get those ones that you don't really have to say anything about. One person tries it and then they're just telling everybody, and it had that just star power. And a lot of our genetics, that we were blessed with, came from our friends at Urban, and so they have a huge genetic library. So we don't by all means have all their winners, but we got a few good ones, and we found a few of our own, and this is, I'd say, one of the all-stars that we've
I can't remember what you gave me last time. Was it cement shoes? No, it was Roadhead.
Yeah.
That was good, bro.
Dude, that was by our boy Desert Frost Genetics. Shout out to him. He does awesome stuff, man.
Yeah, I'm a roller, so I rolled it up and just smoked the whole thing to the head real quick, and yeah, I loved it. So you guys create a really good product. You can tell you're not a new company by any means. What do you think? What do you think's been the biggest advantage from having that experience, even though you weren't directly licensed, even though you were working under another license?
It's mainly the experience. It was one of those where
the actual growing experience.
The infrastructure was small, because with all the splits and everything, it just with a plant count, there was always a very limited plant count until the last 2 years. And so, you
guys were just doing one greenhouse.
Yeah, I have to say, shout out to Duke and Ultra, because if I had listened to him on multiple occasions when he saw the future, then we would have been in a better spot. But you got to commit, and there's a few times where we didn't, and so we didn't have a ton of infrastructure built up, but we had a lot of experience, and we had one greenhouse, and we had an outdoor under construction. So we went in pretty heavy, and we 10x'd our plant count, but grew 4 times if you count soil volume, which is really the fair way to do it. So
that's huge,
4 times expansion in 1 year. It was intense. 500 yards of soil went in the ground, and we had 2 semi trucks a day showing up for a month. It was wild.
That's expansion's fucking tough, dude. Scaling up is tough, and I think there's so many of these new companies now that have come on, and I think that's the scariest thing when you're small and when you're starting out. Especially when you don't have the fucking backing. You know what I mean? When you don't have daddy Warbucks, fucking chatty fucking money, whatever, fucking daddy money. When you're just starting out with, you and your brother's fucking savings from your entrepreneur quests and crazy shit you came up with.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
And maybe dad comes help every now and then. When you're truly working with your family and, we got to do this. Like, it's a whole new fucking ballgame, and it's hard and it's stressful, and it takes a lot of fucking grit.
There's been carcasses along the way ever since, you've obviously look at my age, or not to judge, a couple years older. And
oh, fuck, I'm way older than you motherfuckers. How old are you guys?
I'm 35.
Okay. Oh, damn. No, we're the same age. Yeah. You guys look young.
Juicy's drinking.
I thought you guys were like fucking 25, bro. You guys are young. You guys have baby faces, great skin.
Oh, I trick people, bro.
I think you told me last time, and I was like, oh, fuck, we're the same age. I think I tripped out last time.
I'll get everybody carded every time.
Not only are you fit, but you guys just your faces look young. Did you think these guys were
that's that Living Soil. Shout out. Thank you, Living Soil.
Mike's like 21. Fucking.
What's your guess, Mike? 25? Yeah, we said 25. I think initially.
Mike. On these two, no, I would. How old are you, Mike? You're 28. See. Oh yes. Oh okay.
I should actually say it's just the weed we're smoking.
Fuck, I guess we're all fucking old.
The
young guys left, but they don't stay past fucking 5.
That's what we should have been marketing it as this whole time. We're like, this shit will make you look younger. Fuck that Botox. Just take another puff and it'll relax your face.
So how old does your dad look? Is he look young as fuck too?
He's good.
He's for his age.
He looks 35.
Well. Yeah.
He looks 40. He's 60.
I have a lot of women coming to the store and they're like, man, I was hoping your dad was going to be here. I'm like, sorry I let you down.
And I have no problem believing it.
So
weekly.
You were gonna originally bring him, but you said you had to leave him behind. So what does he do? So your dad is active.
Oh yeah.
So that's cool. That's cool.
So watering with what we do now is constant, mechanical stuff, and so it's kind of funny that no matter what he does, he ends up back in that. As a car wash, owned an industrial steam cleaning company when we were growing up, so. He's always been messing with water.
He's the water tank, all the lines,
clean,
the tanks,
full, make sure the irrigation's running. So it's, the lifeblood of it. And he, communicates with all the sharecroppers to make sure, their rows are handled from a mechanical standpoint. And, Mitchell does all the quality control and, sets the agenda and keeps it all moving. Nice. how it is out there. It's like a beehive. So there's always something. And
so how many greenhouses you guys got now?
Just one. We built it. We have a partner, Casey Ray, amazing guy that he has a lot of talent. He works with a company here. I'll just say a successful company in New Mexico, and has a great wealth of knowledge from just seeing mom and pop companies that really scale. And so, he's partnered with us and doesn't currently work for the company directly, but I call on him for advice and brief him on what's going on, and he shares our vision, and so he's in it for the long haul with us, and looking forward to the day when we're writing that guy big checks.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, man, it's awesome. That greenhouse really is what we knew we needed to. Being perpetual is what it's all about. It's easy to be forgotten no matter how good you are.
Yeah.
And the markets are they can shift quickly, and so
you are perpetual, so it's laced out with lights.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah, it's
nice.
Faux lights, just top notch. We control light temperature and humidity super closely, and Mitchell's on site every day, so usually he's not even at a distance if an alert's off. It's just handled, and it's the automations, it helped when I was there. I've pretty much stepped away.
So you've got a lot of automation. You've got a lot of automation in place, a lot of technology in place. Yeah. That's huge. I've as an extractor, I get to see all the horror stories, and can we still extract it? So
yeah.
I've seen bad things happen. And even from a lab standpoint, losing power. You're running your freeze dryers. You got all this hash in there. They're loaded up, and you lose power, and you're fucked, and it molds it, whatever. So yeah, having sensors, having your temperature, monitored, having, backups for things, that's the difference between fucking losing it or getting
Mitchell's
it.
been on us to get a generator, that'll probably be our next big thing, because it is scary, but you could speak on it, but Mitchell's taught me a lot about the health of the plant, and that's what I like about our growing style is these plants aren't sensitive. They're not you want to talk a little bit about just soil tea?
Yeah.
We stack carbon with long chain and basically just organic. They say the no-till guys, we no-till, but we scratch in nutrients to the top. They say a plant can't eat a chicken feather. A chicken feather is almost all nitrogen, but a microbe can, and what a microbe shits out is really available.
Yeah, well,
yeah. Some of the buzzwords are hard to fit with, So yeah, it's like it's not no-till. We're too truthful. It's like it's not no-till, it's low-till. It's like you're always having these conversations.
Well, living soil is huge, and creating that, I don't know if the right word is biome, but that perfect biome of like you're saying, you know what I mean, the right living organisms along with the right nutrients, and knowing what sometimes those nutrients aren't for the fucking plant, they're for the organisms to make something for the plant, like you're saying, or to help digest whatever you're trying to put into the soil, into the plant. So no, that's cool. And
right, the plants use the 17 or 18 essential things, but the microbes use everything on the periodic table. It's like, what are they doing with platinum and gold and silver? If you believe in as above and so below, and you're a crystal type person, then
yeah, and that's a fun thing. I always like, that we have the Vortex tea brewer. So that thing impresses me. I learn every time I read that statement that it has on it. It's one of those where they're using that toroidal motion to really structure that water. So it's not just oh yeah, does it have the potential for life because you put these powders in it, but like, is the water alive? So we try to.
And the way we brew tea, the plants are smart, and whatever they're feeding sugars to. If you get a lot of tea people that just want to throw tea at it. And it's like, if your plant doesn't want to keep it alive down there, you might back it off a little bit. And just a few veteran moves that, help us to keep those terps high in that taste to the end of the joint.
Hell yeah. So
that's where, like, I think a lot of it's intuitive, where it is hard to put into words, but over the years, the reputation and the product speaks for itself. And, when it's well received, I think we're mindful of our price point, and we don't want the medicine to be inaccessible.
Right. And we're still growing medicine. It's sold through a recreational store.
And we've been, I've been going back and forth with people about, medicine, non-medicine. All cannabis use is medicinal in my mind. Obviously there's things that you can smoke that are much cleaner, much purer than other things. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the reasons people use cannabis, in my opinion, are almost always medical, to medicinal, to an extent of you're doing it for a reason. You smoke for a reason, and it's helping you in some way or another. And we wouldn't yearn for it. We wouldn't be attracted to it. We wouldn't be addicted to it if there wasn't a certain level of, medicinal, for everybody.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, just look at the rate of, we didn't know much about concussions, but you just look at, how we grew up, and it's like, yeah, I rode in the back of the truck, or I did this, I did that, like life was wild, when you grew up, when we did, and it's,
I've had a lot of concussions.
When I fill out doctor paperwork, I'm like, do you really want to know all of them? Can I just put a number? Like, I've had that many concussions, and they're like, yeah, just put a number then, and so, I'm like, this is a guesstimate, and it's, I think a lot of people have that. I didn't realize I was probably medicating for that. Years,
CT,
it's like,
it's, we don't know.
It's all the different terpenes too. Like, you get the beta carotene from carrots, and they say that's healthy for so-and-so, but you can also get that in Cannabis Express is a lot of other, it can unlock things that other things can, but aren't always accessible everywhere.
Look at the long list of essential oils they have studied. The terpenes are very much arguably the essential oils of the plant. And with the right amount of research, and they've done a ton of it, obviously, on the isolated stuff, because cannabis has terpenes that are and then that are present in other things. Limonene, pinene, beta carotene, like all this stuff is present in other stuff. So they have studied it, and they have seen, it's good with this, it's good with that.
Yeah.
They've pinned down. And so that's, and if you think about it, as a cannabis community, we use that terpene science as like a Bible, because it's like, this is all we can that's all they'll let us use. Like, you know what I mean? Well, we've designed,
it's the common language that people are going to be able to use to figure out what helps them. Yeah.
And we've designed the whole sativa indica like structure off, what these terpenes and the effects of these different things that were actually studied and allowed to be studied. Obviously mixed with cannabinoids, they, do wonders and do all kinds of different stuff. But it's cool to see, like, what those terpenes actually do, and how, like you're saying, the different strains and different extracts really help you in different ways. And you'll hear the craziest fucking thing, like, this one strain helped me with this one pain, or this one tick, or this one fucking mood disorder, or this, and it's crazy. It's wild.
It helps me enjoy my breakfast more.
Yeah. No, it helps me just fucking get through my day and able to have enough traction to get anything done.
I let people in traffic. I'm like, go ahead.
Yeah. Yep. No, definitely patience for sure.
Yeah, so, in our store we have a fun way to approach it, because I got tired of, people can get a little frustrated if you just tell them, the only thing that is accurate is, hybrid really.
Yeah.
They get real pissy, and so
you're forced to confide to it.
What we did was we just broke, the terpenes that Rio Grande Analytics can test for into two categories, energizing and relaxing. And there's some that are close to the line, but we did our reading and put them on one side or the other because it had to be simple or people aren't going to get it. So we put them on one or the other, and then you just get a ratio of how many energizing terps and how many relaxing terps are there. And I think if they were neutral, we put them to the relaxing side because cannabis kind of already naturally does that, and so it factors in the potency of the cannabis, but helps people to kind of predict how it's going to help them. And we tell them this is helping you to figure out the medicine that really helps, because I would always get complaints if we canceled anything at the grow. Well, so-and-so came in and they were pissed we don't have this anymore. And it's
took away the blue dream.
Yeah. And it's I'm sorry it helped you, but if you knew the terps, then you would easily replace that. Whereas hard, because that is what helped them.
Because there's some exotic standing next to it that just absolutely dumps on it. You know what I mean? And you're like, hey, I can give you that what you got with that plus more, Yeah. But you have the two types of customers. Well, I'm sure you got many types, but the main two types is you have the fuck me up, what's your most THC, you know what I mean? And, give me that one. They don't care. They don't want to hear about your terpene science. And then you have the people that, like you said, just are serious. Well, and most of the times they're misled, but they're serious about their fucking strain. I'm sure you probably would agree. It's usually a strain, you know what I mean? Whatever, from wherever, you know what I mean? And they can't find it anymore. And they can't get over this, whatever ailment. And if you do the research and say, okay, that's a high pinene strain. You know what I mean? That's a high whatever. You can myrcene strain. You can dial in and say, hey, there's another one over here that actually produces way better, whatever. And who knows, if you got the sale in you can usually get them to try it.
And we're lucky to have a passionate staff that's doing that. They're really taking people through it. And, that's what a lot of the reviews say is like, I can't believe how much time they spent with me. And we're glad to be able to do it right now. We, at a certain point you have a throughput of a store, so naturally things will shift. But we're hoping to over time continue to, like you have, with all your branding and the marketing material you give out with your product, with all these things to have more educational pieces and to do more educational events. So that way it's not just about, having that 10 minutes to talk at the store, it's like, hey, let's do this other event, where you can, get some more of that knowledge or more of that experience, whatever it is. And that's where we're seeing, that it's fun, interacting in that way and educating people is going well now that we've made it like funny and fun. When it was more like actual factual, it was a little bit harder to convey and had a tendency to get off track, where making it a little bit funny has taken people's, guard down.
You got it. And I think, like I said, the market is fucking saturated with fucking retails. I'm sure it makes you fucking cringe. It's a competitive, hot fucking market right now in New Mexico. You got a percentage. I'm not even gonna fucking try to take a hack out of it. You got some of them following the rules, a lot of them not following the rules, and you've got such a weird space right now. So I think that creating something different, a different feeling, coming from a place of coming from your heart with a product and giving people something different is going to really make you guys shine, because there's so many companies that are just going to wash out.
Yeah.
And it's going to, I think over the next few years, it's going to really be a test of time for a lot of these new companies that are just, out there for whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what you guys do. I'm excited to run some stuff. Yeah, no, you guys got some great weed.
We're excited. You know, your price points are where people want them to be, and we're excited to have that in the store. You know, because you carry yourself in such a way that, and the product carries itself. And I've always been a fan of it. You know, it's just being so close to Colorado. We were in a different world, but you're competitive from every corner of the state, and
we're trying. And you know, and so a lot of people, you know, we were coming out of medical. We were on the higher end, you know, with most of the other companies.
You're the you're a high end brand. You know, but, that's all there is to it.
We've doubled, tripled our capacity. We've kept our quality, but we've come down to a I believe a market friendly spot with our prices. And I really think we're ready to compete at a, you know, higher level, you know, with the state and show the state that you can make quality, you know what I mean, at a good price, and you don't have to necessarily race to the bottom.
And in a compliant way. That's what I'm so impressed by walking around your place, is like to have this level of scale and organization together is impressive. That's been the part that's been the most overwhelming, you know, scaling is, you know, you go from growing 200 to 2,000 pounds, and you're going to learn some things, you know, and so seeing how you've gracefully done that, you know,
I don't know how graceful it's been.
You're like from the outside, you know, that's the thing. It always looks easier from the outside, but I'm here at the finished product, and you know, to have built this, you know, inside of a decade is impressive, man. This is amazing.
You're saying graceful, and in my head, I just see like a wild boar fucking flying through a mud and then through a fucking wall and a farmer's fence. Like, about that graceful. But we're here. Dude, it's about having a great team, man. I got a fucking solid team, dude. Like I said, I told somebody earlier, I must have saved enough puppies in my life, you know, to have some wicked karma, because my team's awesome. And yeah, dude, we work, and yeah, we've been able to deliver quality at a you know, commercial level and keep up with a big state and a lot of demand. So
yeah,
thank you for
keep it up, man. We're impressed.
Well, and we're impressed with you guys.
Thanks for doing this is a good format, and I've listened to many other episodes at this point, and you've got some good insightful people on, and I keep learning, so I like it.
Love to have you guys down here, man. It's really cool to see a family business. I don't think there's enough emphasis on, you know, family business in the state of New Mexico. Locals, you know, grassroots people, like you guys said, Farmington, you know, and it's not out of state investors. It's not fucking, you know, loans from every which way. It's, you know, a family of what sounds like a bunch of entrepreneurs, not just one of you guys, but a bunch of, you know, really cool guys that have put together their skills and kept it in the family, and you guys are able to do something like that. And that's cool, man.
Right. Tony's wife is one of our key, you know, she's one of our key pieces. She moves around like a queen. Well, yeah, on the board for sure.
and you know, I heard you guys talk about, you know, everybody and the friends and family involved. That's cool, man. That's, unfortunately, you're hearing less and less of that.
My lady's in now, and we're expecting.
Oh yeah. Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, we're gonna have some lava babies running around.
Lava baby. So what is so explain so you explain the crystal. What is lava leaf? Where'd the lava come from?
I had a buddy in town that had a firm, and you know, he was just spitballing ideas. That's what was in this room, one little cool synchronicity is actually where lava leaf was hatched up.
I forgot.
This was Colibri Media.
Do you know all this?
And
this is Tony's old fucking spot.
Jesse Sansom used to run that, and you know, he wanted something that like people could have that you didn't know was weed, but that could be associated with weed, and like, you know, everybody would say fire and things like that, and you know, and he's like, you know, what about lava leaf? And he had drawn it up, and I don't know if they staged me up, they might have, but you know, the owner of the construction business that was next door like rolled through, and he saw like the mock-up brand pitch, and he was like, someone's about to sell some weed. And I was like, all right, if this old man gets it,
And it was what I'm looking at.
It wasn't the crystal pattern.
Okay.
I still wasn't completely happy with where the brand package ended, did some great things. But I just I'm very particular, anybody, I'll tell you, it's very annoying. Super particular. And another friend of ours that is really blessed with a good eye for marketing did this concept, and we went with it.
So the actual name concept, the branding concept was incepted or whatever it's called in this room.
Yeah.
Was it this one or
It was this one. Is where his office was, and then there was kind of a counter
crazy.
there. It was definitely different. They did some 3D printing and some etching, and they had a lot of really cool
stuff. So he was
stuff.
it wasn't your spot. It was the designer.
It was the designer spot.
Cool,
yeah, but
cool.
this is where we would meet and brainstorm. He was doing it as a side project, and so we worked together on things, and he would kind of give me homework, and we developed it to a point where it was progress, but everybody has different visions, and I had a very particular one, and I wanted to bring in the sacred geometry and have it be it aligns with Metatron's cube, and so we just wanted to line it up and get as much as we could on our side, and unity, harmony, all that kind of stuff we believe in. So we're like, keeps us centered.
The world needs a lot more of that. So no, that's cool, man, and that's funny, you guys. That you said something about hanging out with Zach, because Zach's a good guy, man, and I can see why that. I think that more good people need to get together and do business and be successful together.
Yeah, I love the crystal vibe. We connected on that right away. I say it makes the difference, knowing some of those genetics and what they normally washed at. I think they're onto something. They get them to let go. Those heads are coming off for them, and so we're about it. We love it. It's but it's preaching to the choir, and I think more and more though, as we awaken, it's just going to be constant that we're going to find that there is technology built into nature, and there's a lot more ancient wisdom that we've forgotten than knowledge that we're currently gaining, and so if we can just tap back into some of that.
Something needs to save this fucking world, because it's getting ugly.
Mycelium, bro.
Dude, I'm almost happy this isn't like a current events fucking show, and we don't have to like fucking talk about like the horrible fucking current events and the fucking where the world's going, because it'd just be fucking depressing, dude. It's almost better to talk about the fucking snaky ass fucking cannabis industry than the fucking so no, the world needs more good energy. Where can people follow you guys at? How can they get a hold of you, follow you,
our website's
do business
good,
with you?
lavaleaforganics.com. The website's good because it's always up. Right now Instagram's being a little silly with us, and I'm like one post away from getting in trouble, even though.
Have you been getting like the hey, we're
put
about
you on
to fucking
and shit.
remove you. We think you should probably take down these posts. Have you been getting that shit?
Yeah.
I just appeal them all.
What's funny though, dude, is they'll let me run an ad. So Facebook approved this ad the other day. I was like, I've had gotten flagged for posts that were worse than this. I think they just wanted money the whole time, just like everybody else.
I'm
like,
just gonna,
you know
what? I'm just gonna tell them, look, if I'm the CBDs, are we cool? And I'm just gonna put CBDs. CBDZ.
Yeah.
And I think that should just be the new thing. CBDs. Can we make that a thing?
Dude,
we'll just all run as CBDs.
You can, because you have a branding genius on your team, dude.
Yes, CBDs, CBDZ, bro. And that'll just
pre-approve the project.
You know what I mean? And dude, we could run ads. Could you imagine? We won't tell Meta. Don't turn off your phones or whatever. Don't tell Meta. And we'll just, dude, we'll get the whole industry to just turn like, hey guys, you just got to be CBDs.
Zuck will never know.
Yeah, it'd be like, dude, Zuck wants your buck.
Zuck
be a CBDs, dude. Zuck wants your buck. Come on, dude. You have fucking. So, anyways, okay. So Lava Leaf, the website's going strong. And your store, Farmington. If you guys are in Farmington, go check out the store.
Get out, we'll vibe you up.
And so can people find your flower across the state? Are you guys in a bunch of other stores? Or are you
we're in quite a few places.
Nice.
Hit the website. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings by leaving some out, but Endo in Santa Fe has been with us since the very beginning. Very appreciative of them. They don't shelf any other outdoor, but they love us. So we have a great thing going with them. Dark Matter Top Crop has been amazing partners. You know, they see what we're doing, and they're a great company to work with, and so they came in the right way. You know, we're not just here to hate on everybody from outside. You know, there's some people that have come in with respect. Dreams has been great, and you know, I still to this day will consider, you know, in certain capacities, on his good days, Duke Rodriguez a mentor.
Fucking Duke.
And Ultra Health, I think, has an amazing team, and so that's where, you know, their success isn't a mystery either, you know, and so, you know, we're appreciative of everyone we work with, and, you know, everybody's on the same playing field with the same prices with us, and it all's grown right here in New Mexico, so we're open for business.
You know, and he can fucking call me again, because you know, me and Duke were cool, but then he fucking hit me up at like 7:30 in the fucking morning, fucking being disrespectful, talking shit, and he didn't get anywhere good with me. And I told him what he could fucking do with it. So yeah, no, I
think he just likes to test us, bro. You testing us, Duke?
He tested me, and he got a big fuck you. And I told him I didn't want to work with him. Yeah. And you know, and so, but yeah, at the end of the day, like, you know, whatever. You know, shout out to him or not.
We're forgiving people. You know, it's about forgiveness. You know, and I like people that pay their bills, and I like people that pay their taxes. Because everybody can grow at home. Yeah. So it's like, hey, let's do this the right way. And I would say that we haven't gotten burned. Everyone that we've worked with has done right by us, but we vet the people we work with. We're not begging, you know. There's been a few places where I worked a little too hard to get in, and then it didn't even go right anyway. So it's best whenever it gels well.
And don't get me wrong, respect where respect's due. I don't gotta like him right now, but respect where respect's due. He has helped push this industry
100%. Yeah.
You know, I think our beef started when he tried to like erase the manufacturer. When he decided that manufacturers were no longer needed. But besides that,
he just wanted to make you stronger, bro. Look what you did.
Yeah, I told him he's not needed. And but he pushed the industry. He sued the fuck out of them. He injunctioned, and you know, Google it. But you know, he did. Everybody stood behind Daddy Duke while he fucking go after him. Come on, you do it. And he was the one that actually stood up for shit, got shit changed, called shit arbitrary that, you know, should have been. Yeah. And changed the size of New Mexico's industry. Yeah. And hugely.
He's a trailblazer.
Yeah. So shout out to him. Credit where credit's due. He's still a dickhead. But credit where credit's due. You know what I mean? He's a character, you know what I mean? But he has done huge for New Mexico cannabis.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we appreciate people that have a good team around them and that you can tell are motivated, you know, and that's where, you know, I'm glad that you invited us down here and have showed us your place, man. Thanks for inviting us. And
oh, yeah. No, I appreciate you guys, man. It's always been awesome. Like I said, since I met you way back, really glad you guys are doing your own thing. It's really cool to hear about how you guys started. And I wish you guys the best, and I look forward to future business.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, brother. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Peace.